Hello and welcome along to Penwith Radio. I'm Rob Jenkins and this is Lasting Memories, part of the All Our Stories project in association with the Heritage Lottery Fund.
In this edition of Lasting Memories, George Kerr talks of folk here in Penwith with Alan Waller. They talk of the late Brenda Wootton and the very talented Sarah McQuaid. Alan brings some of his own music to add to the diverse flavour of folk in Penwith.
Bedbugs is mean anymore, they sure don't mean me no good. Bedbugs is mean anymore, they sure don't mean me no good. Oh Lord, they're pecking round my body like a woodpecker pecks at a wood. Bedbugs as big as a jackass, they stand there, they bite you and they grin. See them grin. Bedbugs as big as a jackass, stand there, they bite you and they grin. Oh Lord, they run up into a corner, then they come back, they bite you again. I heard a noise in the corner, and I got up to see, Lord, to see. I heard a noise in the corner, and I got up to see. It was a bedbug mother praying, Lord, give me some more to eat. I laid in bed last night, wondering how a poor boy could sleep, Lord could sleep. I laid in bed last night, wondering how a poor boy could sleep. I got bed bugs under my pillow, bed bugs are nibbling my feet. Bed bugs is mean anymore, they sure don't mean me no good. Lord, no good. Bedbugs is mean anymore, they sure don't mean me no good. Oh Lord, they're pecking round my body like a woodpecker pecks at a wood.
Hello and welcome. This is George Kerr from Penwith Radio, and we are recording a programme with Alan Waller. Alan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Now, Alan has spent a lot of time in Cornwall up until the age of about 20 or so when he went to university, and he's returned here after many a year of wandering on Baltic traders and doing all sorts of exciting things. And but all the way through that, he's been singing. And we both have memories of that song, don't we, Alan? Which was mostly John the Fish, but also Brenda Wootton, I think, singing about the bedbugs.
Yeah.
Now, bedbugs are a real problem when you've been travelling around so much, and you've certainly been around the place, haven't you?
Yeah, but I've managed to get along without the bedbugs, actually.
Right, now Alan's going to sing us a little song in a moment, which is very much related to the festival, which is on here in Cornwall at the moment, at Galawan in Penzance. The director of the festival is Mike Segar-Fenton, and Mike actually put a tune of Rudyard Kipling's to music, and it's called The Harp Song of the Dane Women. Have you got that ready there, Alan?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, we're going over to that record mode now, and we'll just listen to that one.
What is a woman that you forsake her, and your hearth fire, and your homemaker, for to go with the old grey widowmaker? She has no house to lay your guest in, but one chill bed for all to rest in. that the pale sun and the stray birds nest in. She has no strong white arms to fold you, but the 10 times finger in weed to hold you out on the rocks where the tide has rolled you. Yet when the signs of summer they quicken, and the ice breaks, and the birch buds thicken, yearly you turn from our sides and sicken. You sicken again for the shouts and the slaughter. You steal away to the laughing water to look to your ship in her winter quarters. Can you forget all our mirth and our talk at the tables, kine in the barn, horse in the stables, to pitch all her sides and go over her cables? And then you drive out where the storm clouds follow, and the sound of your oar blades ringing hollow is all we have left in the months to follow. What is a woman that you forsake her to go with the old grey widow maker?
Well, Alan, that's a very lovely song, and it was one which appears on one of Brenda's early LPs, and we were saying before that there's at least 20 of those out there, and they do nothing but flourish like leaves on a tree, and the French have taken her over to some extent and taken her to their hearts, and and also I think Brittany has been a place where she sings songs in Cornish and in Breton, and certainly opened things up quite a lot. But we have very early memories of Brenda, don't we?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the atmosphere as it used to be out there in that folk club?
Well, I can remember cycling from St Ives out towards Land's End to go to the Count House, cycling through the drizzle in my woolly sweater, and sitting there completely entranced, really, at first by John Fish and Tell. And at that time you could sometimes, when there were chorus songs, you could hear this incredible female voice coming from the back of the room somewhere. And that was Brenda. And quite soon people said, "Here, you at the back, come up here." And that's when she started singing folk music on stage. And I remember her saying that, well, here was this new kind of music and I'd never heard it, because she'd been singing many kinds of music. She'd been singing jazz, but she'd never sung folk music.
But she sang jazz, I didn't realise.
Yeah, well, you can sort of imagine that when you hear her doing some of the tracks on her LPs. She does a Bessie Smith about a good man is hard to find.
Oh, right.
And Brenda was fantastic because she could sing like a little bird on a twig, and she could sing like a foghorn.
Yes.
And everything in between.
Terrific modulation on that.
Yeah, big lady with a big heart.
Actually, it was also the image of those sweaters that just brought back memories that lots of people used to wear fishermen's sort of sweaters in those days. They were slightly oiled, weren't they, to keep them watertight or something like that?
Yeah.
Because John the Fish certainly had one, didn't he?
Yeah. We're lucky enough to be grown up in a part of the world where people improvise harmony. I used to say about Cornwall that you can go into a pub where you've never been, and you could sing a song they've never heard, and on the second chorus they'll be singing with you, and on the third chorus they'll be singing with you in harmony. And that doesn't actually happen everywhere. In fact, I'm not sure it happens anywhere except here.
Well, that's lovely to know, isn't it? I mean, and I particularly remember the old-time religion was sung a lot, I think, on Christmas Eve in many pubs in St Ives, and then the choirs used to go out. Do you remember the choirs going around St Ives?
I've been in on it a couple of times.
You've been in on it, yeah.
That was wonderful.
Thomas Merritt's carols they were, weren't they? That's right. Yeah. So, tell us a bit more about your early days in folk. I do seem to remember that you had a guitar once, didn't you?
Oh, I still do. Just I didn't bring it with me to England this time.
No. But you started on the guitar, or was that?
I started on the guitar, and that was parallel with going up to university. And when I was sitting there poring over my maths books, and I just thought, no, and then I could pick my guitar up and pull some chords. And so I switched between maths and guitar. It was a good balance.
Did you ever play a wind instrument? Because I seem to remember our friend Karen Evans, as she was then, playing clarinet, I think, and
flute.
And flute, of course, the flute.
I tried writing some kind of arrangement for her. They used to sing a song down at the Count House from Canada about the wild geese. And I remember trying to put a flute part on that. I'm not sure I succeeded, but anyway, Karen played it.
That was those were the days, and actually playing out of doors and with the cliffs in the background as well. I mean, it was just amazing, wasn't it? Yeah. We'll just have another track of Brenda now, and ask Alan to sing us another song then.
I sing of a county of pasties and cream, of pilchard and herring that sparkle and gleam, in the dear old county of Cornwall, the land of pasties and cream, the land of the miners and fishermen bold, the land of the smugglers in stories of old, where men go a-courting and maids are not cold. In the dear old county of Cornwall, 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 the dear old county of Cornwall, pasties and cream, tin in the stream, pilchards and herrings that sparkle and gleam. Though we may roam, Cornwall's our home, the dear old county of Cornwall. Oh, know you the county of pasties and cream, with hay in the meadow and tin in the stream, in the dear old county of Cornwall, the land of pasties and cream. The boats trail their nets through the star-spangled sea, the miners go down where the nuggies may be, and black eyes are laughing upon you and upon me. In the dear old county of Cornwall, 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 the dear old county of Cornwall, pasties and cream, tin in the stream, pilchards and herring that sparkle and gleam. Though we may roam, Cornwall's our home, the dear old county of Cornwall. If we watch the grey shores sink down in the sea, no traitors to home or our sweethearts are we. Or the dear old county of Cornwall, the land of pasties and cream. Wherever we travel, our homes will be dear. For loved ones we'll toil, and for Cornwall we'll cheer. And we'll send home a smile, though we keep back a tear. For the dear old county of Cornwall, 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 the dear old county of Cornwall, pasties and cream, tin in the stream, pilchards and herring that sparkle and gleam. Though we may roam, Cornwall's our home, the dear old county of Cornwall.
amazing as well. What do you think of that, Alan?
Oh, it's lovely. Lovely stuff.
Yeah. Now, have you got another song for us there?
Well, I was thinking when Mike Sager-Fenton started putting his first words and music together, I mean, he was only a teenager, and Brenda Wootton sort of took him under her wing and taught him how to fly even higher than he already was. That was very exciting. I tried my hand at making a song or two. I haven't done as much as Mike. I've done some. I'd like to sing you one of those because, I mean, I went across the North Sea for a year and I stayed for, well, I'm still there. That was 40 years ago. If you do that, you wind up quite a way away from many of your friends, like a lot of Cornishmen do. And this is a song about bridging the gaps.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
I would sing you a song of gentle from this land in which I dwell, and perhaps a word to see your heart grow strong. This too I'd tell. I'd send you words from the quiet of the Northland to your city all by the sea. A word of strong, a word of song, a word to see your heart grow free. And I think of you from where I stand, and I wonder just how near or far that you are now, or once might be. Or what roads to find between you, my friend, and me.
It's a very lovely song, if I may say so. It's a slight feeling of exile. Do you ever feel that when you're over there? Because I know that we were talking over the weekend, and you were saying that you've actually got a little bit of Scandinavian DNA in your blood there somewhere.
Well, probably. I mean, I have this upturned nose, which is a typical Scandinavian thing. My father came from the Lincolnshire coast, the farming population there, and my surname is Waller, but actually that was a mistake. The family surname was Whaler. So they were these farmers who were sort of part-time whale catchers, part-time farmers. And my father came from that stock. I'm not sure I was thinking about that. I was interested in Scandinavia, and between grammar school and university, my parents bought me a train ticket for me and my bike to Sweden. And I was visiting these young people who'd come over to St. Ives on language trips. I suspect my parents may have regretted doing that because basically I never really came back. I spent 3 years studying in Eastern England and felt an awful long way from home. I mean, I'd meet somebody in the street in Cambridge in the evening and I'd say, "Right, Nari." And they'd sort of look at me a bit peculiar and I think, what a funny person. And I'd meet somebody else and I'd say, "Good evening," and they'd stare at me. And I thought...
Slight technical hitch.
Yeah, I'd meet a second person and I'd say good evening and they'd stare at me. And I thought, well, that's a funny person too. And then when the third person came along and stared at me when I said good evening, I realized it's me that's the strange one. I really felt an awful long way from home.
Was that a particularly lonely time, do you think, in your life? I mean, I remember you writing me many, many letters on grey written paper about quantum mechanics and all sorts of things, really. And nobody really writes letters so much these days. Do you still write letters, Alan?
No, it's emails now.
Yeah. Perhaps I should have explained to everyone that you're over here for the Sea Shanty Festival, and can you tell us a little bit about that and how you got into sea shanties?
Well, I mean, the Sea Shanty Festival is a wonderful thing in its own right. Various people around the Cornish coast realised that the old art of pub singing was actually disappearing to the flat screen and the football match and whatever, and decided that it was worth reviving. On the other hand, quite a bit of pub singing was not quite sort of pure, if you can imagine what I mean. Anyway, there are far more ladies in the pubs now than there used to be, and some of those songs just weren't really appropriate. So if you're going to revive pub singing, it really needed a different repertoire. And that got coupled to the idea that, well, shanties, they need preserving as well. So various pubs, various groups of people around the coast started singing shanties in pubs in the old Cornish way with lovely harmonies. And at some point, the group of mates in Falmouth who used to meet at the back of the Reverend Barrington's pub on Tuesday evenings or something like, decided that they would invite the others to a weekend. So they assembled sort of 9 local shanty groups to a festival. They've just completed their 6th festival. All proceedings to the lifeboat. So this year, just over £6,000 went to the lifeboat charity.
Wow.
All the music's free, but they invite you to buy a program and they invite you to throw money in buckets. But the music's actually free. The pubs give the singers a pint. The pasty companies give the singers a pasty. And apart from that, everybody comes and does it for free.
Well, that sounds absolutely marvellous. I don't get near the sea very much. I've read a book called Master and Commander, which is all about the hardiness of life on sea, but I can see even on the occasional trips I've done around Falmouth Harbour that it can be a hard time hauling away on board ship. So the sea shanties were, what, to encourage people to keep up their morale in the stiff conditions of the North Sea and so on? Or?
Well, much more than the North Sea, any ocean, anywhere. Basically, an old-time sailing ship was run by adjusting the lengths of various bits of rope. 1 yard with the sails on it might weigh 900 pounds. And it was way above your head, and there was a bit of rope hanging down that you and some other people had to haul up or down or whatever. And the shanties were a way of coordinating that work so that it all went on, sort of synchronized the efforts of the guys doing it.
I'd increase the output, no doubt, as well, because it would have done that, wouldn't it? Maybe? Yeah.
Or looking at it from the ship owner's point of view, it enabled you to have fewer men to feed because you got them to work hard.
Very true. And you've got a sea shanty for us. Can you tell us a little bit about it before we sing it?
Well, I once had the privilege of standing on the deck of a Finnish four-master with Philip Slater, who's been the lifeboat doctor in Falmouth for 17 years or something like that. He's a passionate sailor. He knows an awful lot about bits of rope and sails. And he was telling us, we were standing there gazing up at the top of the mast, and he was pointing out each bit of rope and pointing out in what conditions would you need to pull that one, how hard would you need to pull it. There'd only be 3 of you because the other 5 guys were over there pulling on that one. And at that point it would be blowing force 8, and the sea would be coming over from there, and the deck would be sloping this much, and you didn't have a hand free to hang on with. And he sort of really gave the feeling of the conditions surrounding these songs.
Yeah.
The one I'm going to do for you, it's one of my own favourites. If I could only ever sing one shanty, I think it would be this one. People worked, they didn't do an 8-hour day the way we do. You worked 4 hours and that was it, because by then you were flattened. Then you had 4 hours off while the other guys were on, and then you went back.
People must have slept like a log under those conditions.
Well, one hopes so, sopping wet.
Yeah.
And this call that everybody knows, all hands on deck, that means you thought you were going to have 4 hours rest, but you're not.
Yeah.
Because you're all going to have to be up there. So this particular song is about waiting for the second mate, his job, to ring the bell to signal that you've done your 4 hours. And you can go down below or go into the deck house for 4 hours and rest if you're lucky. So would he please come soon? Up on the poop deck, walking all about, There is the second mate, so steady and so stout. What he is a-thinking of, he doesn't know himself. We wish that he would hurry up and strike the bell. Strike the bell, second mate, let us go below. Look out to windward, you can see it's gonna blow. Look at the glass, you can see that it has fell. We're wishing that the second mate would strike the bell. Down on the main deck, working at the pumps, there is the larboard watch a-longing for their bunks. Looking out to windward, we can see a mighty swell. We're wishing that the second mate would strike the bell. Strike the bell, second mate, let us go below. Look out to windward, you can see it's gonna blow. Look at the glass, you can see that it has fell. We're wishing that the second mate would strike the bell. Aft on the quarter-deck, our gallant captain stands, looking out to windward with his spyglass in his hands. What he is a-thinking of, we know very well. He's thinking more of shortening sail than strike the bell. Strike the bell, second mate, let us go below. Look out to windward, you can see it's gonna blow. Look at the glass, you can see that it has fell. We're wishing that the second mate would strike the bell.
Alan, that was absolutely lovely. The conditions weren't lovely, and there's some nice little comments in there about the second mate. What we're going to do is just listen now to Brenda Wootton, and then we'll come back and talk some more.
Well, the rain is softly falling, and the Yogi man's no more. I can't hear him calling like I used to before. I came through the gateway, and I heard the sergeant say, "The big boys are coming. See their stands across the way." Well, the rain is softly falling, and the Yogi man's no more. It was there when she told me, as she bade me goodbye. There's no one will love you, not half as much I. My love will endure, dear, like a beacon in the squall, eternal as the Yogi man beneath the dockyard wall. Well, the rain is softly falling, and the Yogi man's no more.
That's Brenda Wootton's lovely, lovely voice again with the Oggy Man. Now, Alan, you were saying before that you were out in Sweden, and one of the things that you've done out there, and I know you've done many, many, many things, was to actually work on a boat and restore it. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because we're all busy restoring boats down here and luggers and things. I imagine that Baltic boats are slightly different.
Yeah, well, my advice is if you're restoring a boat, it's easier to restore a boat that's 7 meters long than it is to restore a boat that's 7 meters wide.
Yeah.
I tried taking on what's called a Baltic trader, and those are the more or less coastal boats that distributed things around the Scandinavian countries that had arrived from the deep sea ships from abroad. Often 2 masters, huge amount of sail because they had to keep themselves moving even when they were behind an island. There's an awful lot of islands there. You wouldn't believe it, how many islands there are.
Yeah, I actually do remember, because I've been from Stockholm to Finland, and I woke up in the morning after, I think I'd had one of those saunas that they have on board ship in over there.
Yeah.
And the sunlight coming up over those islands was a most remarkable thing. And as you say, the density of islands aren't always marked on some maps, I think.
Well, no, they're pretty good at charts, but, if you can sail around Cornwall, if you can keep track of one island at a time,
yes,
and you have to be good with currents and tides.
Yes.
Now, the Baltic doesn't have currents and it doesn't have tides, but keeping track of one island at a time won't get you anywhere.
Right.
They have a creation story that on when God had made the waters and he'd made the land, and he had a whole lot of rubbish left over, gravel and small stones and whatever, and he tipped it out into the sea between Sweden and Finland to produce the Åland skerries.
Right. Are those skerries, what sort of rock are they actually made from?
I'm sorry, I'm not a geologist.
No.
It's harder than a boat, I tell you.
And you were restoring this boat. Now, did it have a motor in it, or did you put a motor in it, or was it?
No, well,
what
both.
was it like when you bought it?
It was one of the first Baltic traders. They were timber boats. They were built of local pine, and in the early years of the last century, they were building boats with beautiful lines inspired by vessels like the Cutty Sark. Lovely clipper stems and lovely rounded sterns and whatever. 2 masters with great big topsails. And then, of course, the steel boats came in. But a lot of tonnage got sunk during the Second World War. The Finns had a period of relative peace after their winter war, and they needed tonnage to distribute goods, but they didn't have any access to steel. So they had to get these scary farmers to come out of their woods and timber up the same kind of local built boats that their fathers had been making a generation before them. And my boat was one of these. She was built in 1942, I think, almost 30 meters long. Magnificent bit of timber sculpture, but it needs an awful lot of maintenance. It really does.
So how did you start about? I mean, did you have plans of the boat, and did you?
Nope. Absolutely. I don't think they had plans. They made it sort of as they went of the wood that they'd collected. I don't think plans did not exist. So
did you berth the boat while you were working on it? You must have done. I mean, you can't work on it in the sea, so you had to put it up into the into some boat shed or something like that?
That would have been lovely, but if you're going to get a boat, there are no tides, so you can't sort of beach it. You've got to pay for time on a slipway, and that's so expensive, so that you leave it in the water until you need to pull her out and do something below the waterline. So
people make money out of the slipways, obviously.
Well, I don't think they get to be millionaires either, but they need to have a turnover, obviously.
Yeah. But it was a hard job restoring this boat.
Well, I realised after 3... my plan was to turn it into some kind of floating theatre, cultural hall, and visit different ports in the summer, and people would come on board and pay their tickets and see some puppet theatre or whatever.
Right.
After 3 years, I realised that I basically wasn't getting anywhere whatsoever.
Actually, you just put me in mind of some of those stories of Dennis Val Baker, because he, I think, had a boat at one stage. Did you ever hear of that? And I know they had the whole family aboard, and I think that's one of the main things that actually came out of it were all those novels that he wrote about it. You've got a song for us now in Swedish, is that right?
Yeah, Swedish music is it's a world unto itself, you could say.
Not quite the same as Cornish, but different, but very interesting. And the words have got a kind of specially different rhythm about them, I think.
Yeah, it's a special language. I really enjoy it. On the other hand, I've been living in Sweden when I'd been there for 20 years, I felt Swedish was perfect language for talking to people, and I could express absolutely anything, and I could get all the nuances of a conversation. But when I wanted to sing, it came out English. It took me 20 years to really get to sing in Swedish.
Really? So how long to become fluent in the first place? 5 years, perhaps? Or?
Oh, well, no. Swedish isn't actually a difficult language for us to learn, because basically the grammar that's at the bottom of English is what the Vikings brought with them, until the Normans dropped a lot of vocabulary on top of it. Yeah. So all the homely words like home and water and father and mother, you recognise instantly.
Right. So that would be lovely to hear you sing that now. Let me just put it onto the right button.
To the howling north wind and the winter, my brother, to the bright morning star that waits for the sun, to our people, our land, to our sorrowing mothers, to our teeming towns and our ice-swollen rivers, we raise now our glasses to days yet to come in, and to love and to joy that is done. Till den vinande nordan och vintern, broder, syster. Till den gryende morgonens stjärna klar. Till vårt land och vårt folk och vårt bedjande moder. Till myllrande städer och istunga floder. Vi höjer vårt stop och till kommande dagar. Och till kärlek och till lycka som var.
Sounds a very long way away there. So what I'm going to do is just back home a little bit with Darla Helston. was just telling me about one or two stories that he had about people that went off into the distance, sailed away for many a year, and when they came back, they had only one means of recognising each other, and that is that they each shared half of a ring, and they would compare the rings, and that way they could identify each other. Is that right, Alan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. Now, in Sweden, you met a young lady. How did you get together? Tell us a little bit about that.
That was one of these newfangled things. We were both looking for a new partner, and we put whatever through the internet.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's a special way of meeting people, because it means you get to meet them from the inside before you get to meet them from the outside. Thoroughly recommended. If you can't find the person you need sort of down at the pub, try the internet. If you have to like writing, really.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be terrified by computers, but if that fits you, it's an incredible way to find out somewhere in the world this person who answers to just what you're talking about yourself.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. I mean, I'm just thinking of the various different aspects and angles. You've had a very busy life in lots of ways, integrating science and technology and arts. And have you always felt that need to sort of combine and being, I don't know, sort of interested in science for a bit and then needing a bit of a change? Is that the way it comes upon you, or is that it's just the way you are?
Well, really, I don't think I've felt the need to combine, because I've never felt the need to separate.
Right.
It was all the same. I mean, I've done things I've loved.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've been... Wool turned out to be my speciality, and I've done a lot of lecturing about wool.
You were saying about the wool.
And often I'll give lectures to a group of people. They can be wool producers, like sheep farmers. They can be wool users, like craftsmen or textile teachers. And sometimes people will come up to me after a lecture and say, Alan, how did you learn all this? And that's easy to describe. It's just to give a catalogue of sort of who I've worked with and what I've done and who I've met and so on. But one day, a little old lady came up to me after a lecture. Her name was Victoria, and we were at a lecture barn out in the country. And she came up to me after my lecture and said, Alan, why did you learn all this? And that's quite a different kind of question.
Yeah.
And I've been working on the answer ever since. You know, why did I? But in some way or other, I had some kind of richness of being born inquisitive.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
And I've just followed my nose wherever it's happened to be pointing for the next 5 minutes, which is quite a lot of different directions.
Well, I was just thinking back to those lichens that were around, once they're still around, and you got some lovely colours out of those, didn't you? And I know that there are people now using natural dyes, and
you can make a whole life's work out of natural dyes. Yes, I was scraping lichens off the Cornish granite. That's when I was studying at Cambridge, and it was part of the rules of our student rooms were that we weren't allowed to make food because we got food in hall. We weren't allowed to cook food, but you were allowed to cook coffee. So the question is, what does your landlady say if she finds you boiling for 12 hours a mixture of vinegar and lichens to dye some yarn? But she decided it was okay because I wasn't making food. I wasn't going to eat it when it was done.
Can you get different colours out of the same lichen by using different fixing agents?
Oh, yes.
Really? So from what to what sort of thing?
Well, my favourite there, I think, would be Xanthoria parietina, which is these yellow blotches that you see on some of our rocks. And they do demand very pure air, so there's a lot of vehicle fumes, you won't get them. But if it's a farm building that's adjacent to the manure heap, they love it. So the roof will be quite orange. Now that will give you browns, but you can ferment it to give you purples. And if you expose it to bright sunlight at the right moment, you can make it blue.
Wow. That's totally amazing.
That's wild.
That's totally amazing. Well, what we're going to do now is just play Sarah McQuaid, and then we'll come back to Alan and talk about Ranel's music.
Cheer up, it might never happen, said the stranger in the street. Well, it already did, but that's life, and loss is nothing new to me. And the doctor says I need a little something to get me through this difficult time. But I've got a reason for my state of mind. It's only an emotion, there's no problem here to solve. It's natural, I'm feeling sad, that's all. Black anymore, we don't mourn, we don't talk about it, that's for sure. We smile like obedient children, and we swallow the pills prescribed, 'cause the power of our anguish has us terrified. It's only an emotion, there's no problem here to solve. It's natural, I'm feeling sad, that's all. And today I saw a funny thing that made me crack a smile. And the colors all seem brighter, and my soul is getting lighter. It just takes a little while. No problem here to solve. It's natural, I'm feeling sad, that's all. It's natural to feel sad, that's all.
Just to remind everyone that we've got Alan Waller with us, and we've been talking about folk music, all sorts of folk music. We've been talking about seafaring, we've been talking about dyeing wool, and we've been talking about all sorts of aspects of everything from mythology to science. But one thing that I was going to ask Alan about was the sort of music that his partner plays. Now, your partner's partly Swedish but partly Chinese, is that right?
No, her surname Mao, that came from her previous husband being Chinese.
Oh, right. But she herself is Swedish, yeah?
She's born in Sweden with parents who basically were refugees from Germany.
Oh, gosh, wow.
So the name Ragnhild, that's very, very Nordic, but was in fact German.
Oh, right.
And she retained Mao because there aren't a lot of those around, so people remember it.
No, yes. Now, what sort of music does she go in for? It's very spontaneous, as I understand it. And,
yeah, she plays the piano, and she started playing from sheet music like we all do. But at some point, she decided that the sheet music was keeping her down, so she threw it all away and started just doing an exchange between her fingers and her heart and where her mind was taking her. So none of it is written down, none of it is planned. There are no rhythms, there are no keys, but it's very beautiful and it's very easy to listen to because it's all unfolding in front of your eyes or in front of your ears. And she also does it with other musicians, and she seems to infect them with her way of improvising. So I had a wonderful experience where a guy she'd never met who played the saxophone, she'd spoken to him on the phone and he agreed to come home to our place and have a try. And he came in through the doorway and he pulled out his saxophone and said, "Would you please give me a D?" And that gave an hour and a half of music.
Wow.
Without them saying a single word to each other, just exploring each other's sounds, reflecting them.
Quite amazing.
It's wild stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So if you would like to hear Ranel's music, it's on, now have I got it here? I have. www.myspace.com/Ranhild Mao, which is spelled RAGNHILDMAO. Now, Alan, have you got another last song for us, please?
Yeah, I've got a last song. It's about the sea, but it's about coming home from the sea.
Coming home from the sea.
But perhaps when you've been... In the old days, there were no telegrams, there were no letters, there was no nothing. So this person that you've been parted from, you know absolutely nothing about whether you will find them, if they're still alive, and whether they will even recognize you.
Yeah.
And I used to use this one as a lullaby when getting my first child to fall asleep.
Oh, how lovely. So we're going to hear that now.
Fair young maiden, she's all in her garden. Strange young man, and he's a passer-by, and he says, "Fair maid, will you marry me?" And this then, sir, was her reply. "Oh no, kind sir, I cannot marry thee. I have a love who sails the salt sea. Though he's been gone all of 7 years, still no man shall marry me. Ah, but what if he's in some battle slain, or drowned in the deep salt sea, or if he's found some other love, and he and his love both married be? Oh, if he's in some battle slain, then I will die ere the moon doth wane. And if he's drowned in the deep salt sea, then I'll be true to his memory. And if he's found another love, and he and his love both married be, I wish them health and happiness, where they may dwell all across the sea. And he's picked her up all in his arms, and kisses gave her 1, 2, 3, says, "Weep no more, my own true love. I am your long lost John Riley."
Alan, thank you very, very much for coming down to sing to us today, and we hope that you've enjoyed listening to some Cornish songs, and we certainly enjoyed having you down here.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, we'll just finish off with the Brenda Wootton, "To the Sea."
See the beaten fisherman dreaming in his sleep. His rocking chair is rolling over oceans, remembering the early days of running to the boats, down to the sea.
That's all for this edition of Lasting Memories, part of the All Our Stories project in association with the Heritage Lottery Fund.